Welcome to my show, and I have a guest with me, Tiffany Heron. Tiffany Heron, how are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you very much, ma. Firstly, we know you are an energetic healer and
hmm
astrologer under which who speak about mental health and self improvement. Can you tell us more about that area, ma?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm an an energy healing practitioner, and I infuse astrology into all of most of my clients because it just helps give us a better picture of who they are as a person in their karmic paths and things like that. And so, when we talk about energy healing, really what we're getting into is we are all energetic beings, right? And we have energy constantly flowing through us. And so why do we feel bad, right? And the reason why we feel bad is our energy, our chi, it kind of stops, right? So if we think about like a waterfall, right? We have days where we feel really good. And so the water's flowing through us, our chi, our energy, right? It's flowing all through us. And then as we go about our day, we might experience little sort of triggers, right? Or traumas resurfacing. And they sort of clog up our chi, right? Almost like logs in a dam. And so that's really why we feel bad, is because whenever we react to something instead of responding, that's almost our clue that there's a program there, that there's some old trauma, there's some old trigger. And now most of these happen from childhood, or they are actually carried through our ancestral line, and even in a lot of instances from our past lives as well. And so these are all these are dense energies within us. And so, you know, when we can, when I'm with my clients, right, we find out, what it is that you want to work on, right? So let's just say, for instance, that you want to work on, the relationship with your dad, let's just say. And there's a lot of wounds within that, right? So we can energetically clear those traumas, those old programs that you've had, let's say with your father. And so that relationship can take on new energy because you've cleared yours. And the really beautiful thing about when we clear our energy, especially if it's with another person or towards another person, it has an effect of helping them as well. And that's the really beautiful thing when we start to get into some of these energy healings, is that it's a gift. The more that we can heal and clear ourselves, it becomes a gift to our past ancestors and our future ones as well, or
All
just
right.
people that we're working with. So yeah, it's really a profound level, or in a profound way to move your energy and to get rid of these, traumas and programs and things like that, that often we don't even recognize as, an incident from when I was 3 years old, let's say, right? Because we've named it something different.
All right. I want to ask, do you have any book you are writing when it comes to this trauma thing, or do you have any book you're writing in the future, or you are not just thinking about writing any book currently?
Oh, a book is definitely something in my purview. I've always wanted to write a book. And I think, now given what I've attained over the course of learning this energy healing and things like that, it's really come clear to me what the subject matter will be. And I think I was waiting to let the book dictate to me, but a book is something that I'm here to express, and I want to give to humanity, right? And just be and do better, because if we come from a place of love, the world can change. That's it. It's really that simple. It's not easy, but it is that simple.
All right, I want to go to the point when maybe in some areas, majority of the um, youth of today, I don't know about that place, but in our place, they are majority of them are more of having this issue of oppression. I want to ask, does oppression connect to anything that deals with trauma? Does it connect to anxiety, or it is a different thing entirely?
No, I wouldn't say it's different entirely at all. I think that, oppression is a trauma, right? It's not being seen or witnessed for who you are as a person, right? It's
Mm.
that oppression based on, what other people think of you. And so whenever we have these wounds within us, they're ours. And that may sound really difficult to hear for most of us, but anyone who treats us, let's say, poorly, right? It's also us vibrating that way. And so we can, in effect, help ourselves by choosing to change our energies. Because if we can change our energies, it changes how we vibrate out. Does that make sense? And so, you know, they are traumas because we're not being seen, right? We're not being seen, we're not being witnessed for who we are or who we believe that we are or know that we are. And so, it just comes down to, again, this idea of love and how much compassion can we have? How much compassion can we give, right? And to really kind of change our situation, because we can't change our situation, but we can change how we think and feel about our situation. And by virtue, that can also help to change our situation.
All right. Can you tell us some type of trauma that can exist within a person? Like different type of way that trauma can develop within a person's life.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, when we look at trauma, trauma is, your very first trauma in this lifetime is being born, right? More often than not, that's a very traumatic experience. It's traumatic for the mother, it's traumatic for the baby as well. And so entering this world, we're starting with these traumas already, right? Now, I'm not saying all births, because I'm sure that there are some very beautiful births where doctors don't intercede, and it all happens the way that it should. Those are probably less traumatic, right, than some that are in the hospital or who knows what's going on. So we enter the world with trauma already. And so, you know, you can be as young as a week old and have somebody, you're crying and a parent or somebody doesn't comfort you, and that creates a trauma. You can't put words to it when you're a baby because you don't know what it is, but you know the feeling. And so over time, we develop the words for the feeling. And so, if your parents didn't meet your needs, right, that becomes a trauma within you. It helps you, it almost guides you into that path of not feeling seen, not being witnessed, maybe not having worthiness. We all have the same core wound, I feel, but our title for it is sometimes different, right? Because we're just not being seen for who that we are, because our parents also are wounded. They're also coming from pain, right? And they need help too, but they might not realize it in that moment. And so, we have lots of childhood traumas. Like, for instance, you could walk through the door of your very first school, and you get upset and they won't let you go back to your mom, right? That could be a trauma, They're very small instances. Traumas don't have to be this big, elaborate, right? Like, I was in war, right? We all know that there's a lot of trauma with that, and I don't dismiss that at all. But for us personally, what we experience can become these little traumas within our life. And when we experience a trauma, we make a program in our subconscious, right? So let's say you're 3 days old, you're crying and nobody comes to you. You don't make that decision in the moment because you're just a baby, but you know what the feeling is. And so eventually you'll be able to put words to it and think to yourself, nobody cares about me, right? So you go through your life, and anytime you don't feel like anybody cares about you, it shuts down your nervous system. It stops your chi from flowing, right? But now you're 40 years old and you haven't discovered why this keeps happening to you, right? But when I'm with my clients, we can get to the root of some of these traumas, right? And really figure out, kind of nudge the subconscious, because the subconscious is always paying attention. It's always on, it's gathering data, right? And it holds it for us. But if we don't do something with it, it helps us create different stories in our lives that might not always be useful. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question?
Yes, yes, ma. I want to ask again, like what if someone that is too traumatized, what damage can it do to such person? Like what damage can it do?
So, okay, so somebody having trauma, like, what can it do to them? Well, I believe, what I know, I should say, is that all of our physical symptoms are a manifestation of an emotional wound. And the longer that they go um, unrecognized or unwitnessed, the larger these wounds become. And like, when we look at astrology, if you want to, you can find where you might have problems energetically. I mean, it's really kind of wild when you think about, you know, the longer that you hold these traumas, the more that your physical body will express them. But does that make sense? We don't get to say, oh, my ear hurts. Well, now I have an ear infection. Now I have, all of these other ailments, right? So it's always I always advise or invite when you have a physical ailment, even so much as just hitting your hand, right? Like, ow, I hit my hand, right? What were you thinking about before that happened? Because that will help give you a clue as to the trauma that is being brought up, right? And I know it kind of sounds a little, maybe a little, different for some people to kind of hold space for that. But if we pay attention to how we feel, there's little clues within that. And so if we don't heal the trauma within us, it affects every one of our relationships, whether we want it to or not. It affects the relationship with our children. It affects the relationship with ourselves because we're not able to see us for who we really are. We're seeing versions of ourselves based on our trauma. And so it really is this invitation to heal yourself. We all have that ability, whether we want to or have, the access to it might be a different story, right? But it is there. And the longer that we stay with these wounds, the more our physical body kind of pays the price, so to speak. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, yes, ma. I heard you said healed. Like, is there any way a trauma can be healed? Like, can a trauma be healed? Is it something that is possible?
Yes. Yes. It takes some work. It takes some work, and I'll tell you why. So if you take your trauma and think about an onion, right?
Mm.
We can peel off layers of the onion and you'll feel better, right? You will feel better. But until we get to the core of the onion, the middle of the onion, right? Then that trauma might still exist. And so what happens when we heal or clear a trauma energetically? It means that it won't bother you. It won't tax you the way that it does. It almost it removes itself from your thought field. So let's just say when you were a boy, right? You got hit by a red car, right? A red car came and hit your car. You might not have even gotten hurt, right? But in your mind, as that young boy, you make a program, you make a decision that red cars are bad because it caused you pain. The red car caused you pain. So you go through your life, and every time you see a red car, your body is constricting just a little because it's fear, right? We're afraid of red cars. And so this is a very easy example, but let's just say you come to me and you say, I don't know what's going on. I get into cars and I get so stressed out. I have so much anxiety. And so we figure out that it happened when you were 3 years old. Let's say there was a red car that hit you when you were 3 years old. So we find the program, we find out, what the trauma is. And then through our energetic bodies and subtle subconscious shifting, we take that dense ball of energy and separate it, essentially, is how it goes. So that it doesn't trouble you. So that when you see a red car, you don't feel that pain anymore. It's gone. It's removed from your thought field and you have peace. So you can get to places where you have peace with trauma. Now, let's say grief, right? Somebody passes away. Those hurt. Those hurt us a lot, right? And so when we have a lot of grief, I feel for a person, it's because we have unresolved traumas with them, right? And so, like, for instance, my father passed away 12 years ago, right? I've healed from my traumas of him passing away in my life with him. So when I get a memory of him, I get a little sad, I get a little love, and then I move on. It doesn't stay with me like it used to, right? And so that's how we can experience healthy emotions. So you see a red car and you think to yourself, oh, those used to be bad. They're not bad anymore. And then you just move on. You move on through your emotions, right? And that's really how we should be. We should feel an emotion, feel it, see it, announce it, move on, right? You just move on through your emotions. We're constantly having these emotions, but the more trauma we have, the more the emotions stay and they affect everything else around us.
All right. I want to ask now I'm healed, everything is okay. How can the person and like how can I become a better self? Like how can I become a better person healing from those things? What are the things that I think that I can be doing, just to make myself happy, just to not make that trauma, escalate again?
Yeah, that's such a great point. So, the more traumas, they're negative vibrating energies, right? And so the more that we collect these negative energies, the more terrible we feel, you know? And so if we can see and witness that this is a trauma, and even if you can't heal it or clear it in the moment, if you can If you can get into that subconscious enough just to shift it and say, okay, I'm going to choose to think about something different. I'm going to choose to listen to something that makes me feel good. I'm going to choose to change how I'm vibrating so that I vibrate higher. And you kind of can just move yourself up the scale. So it is very possible for us to do. It does take work, right? And so I always say start small, start with things that, if something just annoys you, use that moment because it doesn't hurt you so much, right? It's just a little moment in time. So you can say, okay, Tiffany, we understand that was annoying. Let's move on. Let's go outside. Let's go find nature. Let's go, listen to a motivational speaker. Let's read a page out of a book. Let's sing. Let's dance, right? Let's change how we're vibrating. We all have this choice. Again, if it's not, if it's not, if it's not a habit, it can be challenging at first. So we start small and make little steps to try to just change how we're vibrating better, because that's what all of this is, right? All of our traumas and everything in this world is a product of how we feel. And we by often don't understand that we can change how we feel. Like we do have that. We can change how we feel. And most of it comes from love. If we can give more love, if we can give and show more love, then everything changes. But we need to love ourselves first and foremost before we can see that. And that comes from healing these traumas.
All right. So I want to talk about the people who try their best to use maybe drugs to cover that heal that wound. What can you say about what is the advice you can give to such type of person?
Yeah, when people turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to sex, they turn to food, right? They turn to things. They're looking for something to make them feel better. That's what that is, right? They might not know it in the moment. They might not be able to put words to it, but we need other things to make us feel better. And it comes from us not feeling better inside. And so instead of going inward, because that's hard, we look outward to drugs, to alcohol, to change, right? Because we're not, sorry about that. We're not, our energies are vibrating low and we don't know how to get out of it. So we reach to other things, right? We reach to other things to help us, but it doesn't change our energies. It lowers our vibrations. It doesn't actually make us feel better. And we know that. It doesn't mean that we stop, right? And so the more healed and clear you can be, the less you're going to need these outside sources to make you feel good because you feel good inside. And that's really it, right? How can we feel good inside on a day-to-day basis? And it comes from things like I said, find things that make you feel joyful, that make you feel happy. And let that be your focus for your day, right? Things will always come up. They're going to challenge us. And it's how we accept them and it's how we, not resist them, right? So often we want to control our world and we simply can't. But if we let go, if we resist, right? We're creating more conflict. So if we don't resist to the world, if we just allow, our lives can be so much better. And it comes with choice, right? I'm going to allow this to happen. I'm not going to resist it. I'm going to allow it. And it just changes how you're vibrating. Like, for instance, if you're stuck in traffic, we have two choices. We can either see what we don't know, which is there's a reason I'm stuck in traffic, right? The universe has something that I don't know. So instead of getting upset and mad, I'm not going to resist it. I'm going to allow it. Yeah, we're stuck in traffic, right? That's choice one. Choice two is to get super mad at everybody and everyone else for being stuck in traffic. Which one is going to make you feel better? The first one. Which one is going to make you feel worse? The second one. But the second one is also going to make people around you feel worse because they're going to feel that energetic expression.
All right. I want to ask when you were explaining something. I want to ask, does character, like does trauma, like does it affect someone's character? Like the way someone just reacts or do some things in some ways sometimes.
Oh, I do believe that. Yes, very much so. Because when we have traumas, they tend to dictate how we react. Do you know what I'm saying? And so if something interferes with that, our energetic body starts to shut down. And so we 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 don't have that love. We don't have that compassion. It shuts down that side of us, that higher vibrating side. It might not shut it down, but it certainly quiets it, right? And so then when we're upset, we look for more things to confirm that that's why I'm upset. Do you know what I mean? Like if you and I are friends and you said something to me that I didn't appreciate, I might look for other ways that you're being mean or unkind, right? But I have a choice. If I'm looking for it, I will find it. But if I want to look for the opposite, if I want to have compassion and say, no, he doesn't mean that. It's okay. He's just coming from his own pain. And then I switch how I feel about it. Well, that's my choice, right? Do I want to think about someone or a person in a negative vibration or a higher vibration? It is a choice, you know? We get to choose that. Often our wounds want to keep us defensive. They want to keep our ego, right? Our ego wants us to say, no, you're wrong, you're bad. It's not me, it's you, right? But it's always us. It's always us because however we feel is what we project out.
All right, what can you say? What are the different? What can you say about someone reacting and someone responding to issues?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I said, when someone is reacting to issue and when someone is responding to issues, what are the difference you can say about those two, reacting and responding?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So when we talk about reacting versus responding, so let's say you have you have a 4-year-old daughter, right? And your 4-year-old daughter spills their cereal everywhere, right? And you say, "It's okay, honey. It's no problem. It's just a mess. We'll clean it up." And we make a game of it, we make it fun, right? That's a response. A reaction is, what did you do? Why did you spill your milk? Now I have to clean it up. Why were you playing like that? Those are reactions. And then most of the time, if we're aware enough, we might stop after and go, ooh, I didn't handle that well, right? And in those moments, I invite you to get curious because there's a reason that you reacted that way. But the only one who knows it is you. So you can figure out what the program is. What is it? Is it like, let's say, one of my friends, said that she was so upset because her boyfriend didn't change the toilet paper roll. The toilet paper roll didn't change it. I said, well, how did that make you feel? And she's like, mad. He didn't change it. I said, no. But how did it make you feel? She said, not respected. Perfect. So you don't feel respected. That's the program. It has nothing to do with your boyfriend who didn't change the toilet paper roll. Do you know what I mean? It's just that trauma wound that keeps resurfacing. So instead of saying, oh, no big deal, I'll just change it, you get upset. The other person doesn't even know you're upset, right? So you start to vibrate lower. And when we start to vibrate lower, we tend to pick up more lower vibrating thoughts, right? And then pretty soon, we're just in total reaction mode. Like, have you, when you are speaking with somebody, and if I say to you, hey, I'm a little upset about how you and I, we had a conversation yesterday and I just didn't feel like you heard me. Is it okay? Can we try that again? And you say to me, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Of course. That's a reaction, right? Excuse me, that's a response. A reaction could be you becoming defensive. What do you mean we didn't have a good conversation? I thought it was great. No, we can't have that again, right? That's a trauma response. The first one is an emotionally intelligent response because we've healed a lot of traumas. The second one comes from trauma. Does that kind of help to understand the difference between those?
Yes, definitely help. I want to ask, like, lastly, i- generally with what you said, what is the advice you can give generally to the audience, man?
My general advice is if you feel bad, find ways to make you feel better because no one else can do it for you, right? And nothing else should do it for you. No other substance or things like that, right? But what can you help? And I always say, hey, make a list. If it helps, make a list of things so that you can turn to it and say, I feel bad. What can I do for myself? Right? Physical activity is a great way to get out of your thoughts. Anything that breaks the attention in the mind is very helpful to help us stop thinking and vibrating in those negative thoughts. So you, again, nature, right? Like right now, I don't know if you hear the birds chirping, but just being in nature changes your vibration just like that, right? To me, that's the number one thing. If you feel bad, go outside. Another thing is listen to something motivational, read something motivational. Those always can help you change, like this podcast, right? This might help you get out of your lower vibrating frequency because we're speaking on things of love and we're sending out energy, right? This is coming from a place of love. So the energy is going to be felt by all of the listeners. You know what I mean? So even something simple as this can help change how we feel. Breathing is also wildly impactful. Just taking very slow breaths in and out of our nose helps take our attention out of our mind. And really, that's the biggest thing. How do we take our attention out of our thoughts just for a moment to put space in and then choose how to feel next? Like it is a choice, right? And so, I'm going to go in nature. I'm going to play my favorite song. I'm going to dance. I'm going to go play with the children. I'm going to go play with the dog, right? There are a lot of ways that we can change how we vibrate. We can do yoga, right? So you can make a little playlist for yourself. When you're in a good headspace, when you feel good, when your energy's flowing, I totally invite you all to take a few minutes and write down things that you can do to make you feel better. And another thing is, I always suggest to have a place to go in your mind too that makes you feel better. Like I do a lot of hiking. So I travel to, when say if I can't sleep or, I don't have the opportunity to find something outside of me, I can still change my vibration by changing what I'm thinking about. So if I purposely and with intention think about something that makes me feel really good, it changes the way I'm vibrating, right? And also, compassion is huge. If people are making you upset, offer compassion. They're coming from their own wounds. It's okay. I'm sending them love, right? It's really easy to do, but it's not that simple. And I understand that. So take it slow. But the more love we can give, the more love we also receive back. And it helps to change our vibration. Love is the highest vibrating frequency we have. So be around something you love, be around someone you love, right? Find little ways for you to feel better because if you leave it up to the world, you will not feel better.
Right, thank you very much. There's usually a question I used to ask at the end of the show. Um, I want to ask if there is anything you would have loved to inherit from the ancestors, that's the forefathers, like you would have loved to inherit. What do you think it would have been?
I'm
Like,
sorry. Could you ask me that one more time? I apologize.
okay, I said if there is anything, just anything that you would have loved to, inherit from the ancestors, the forefathers,
Oh,
what do you think the thing would be like? Can you think the thing would have been?
you know, I think that um, we all have that bond with nature. And I think that our ancestors felt that far more than we do today, right? Our ancestors by and large were more connected to the environment, to nature in all capacities. And so for me, that's really the gift there is how do we get back to our roots, our literal roots, right? Through nature and through ourselves. Because, if we can do things that our ancestors did, we're vibrating with them, right? They're with us there. And so, I think the pace of our world doesn't always suit us. And so trying to slow things down intentionally is really going to be the best way to do that. And our ancestors were really beautiful at doing that because they didn't have everything that we have now. They don't have all this technology. They have think about your parents, what did they say? Oh, we were outside all the time. All we did was spend time outside. And now we have these children now, they hardly spend any time outside. So I think that one true gift from our ancestors is that ability to know and understand the nature very intimately. I think that that's something that we've stepped away from that I would love to invite back for humanity.
All right. I want to use this medium to appreciate you, Tiffany. Thank you very much, ma, for spending this little time on my show. I want to appreciate. Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be
All
on
right.
here. Thank you for this beautiful platform.
Have a wonderful day, ma.
Thank you so much. You as well.